Hej, mitt namn är Märta och jag jobbar med samlingen på Konstmuseet i norr i Kiruna. Och i den här videon ska vi prata om okonventionella metoder för inköp och förvaltning av konstverk. Och när det kommer till samtidskonst är inte alltid den faller inom traditionella kategorier såsom måleri eller skulptur. Och därför vill vi berätta om hur processen kan se ut för andra typer av verk. Och just nu befinner jag mig framför installationen We Swim in One Water, Act 4 Ocean Blue av konstnären Anastasia Savinova. Och den här installationen skapades till utställningen Samla och visa och specifikt för den här platsen som jag befinner mig på. Museet valde att köpa in det här verket och det är en typ av installation som inte finns i samlingen sedan tidigare. Men då verket består av flera olika objekt så blev det en fråga om resurser. Så museet i dialog med konstnären skapade till samlingsinköpet en omarbetad version av installationen. Nu har vi konstnären Anastasia Savinova på plats för att montera ner verket och prata om hur vi på bästa sätt ska kunna förvara det och även kunna visa verket i framtiden. Anastasia, could you please tell me about the installation?
Okay, the starting point of this installation was the image of a cabinet of curiosities. And the installation consists of numerous sculptures that are made from artifacts found in our environment. And I feel that working with found objects is for me a way to really pay attention to the world. And I take familiar objects as some sort of curiosities of everyday life. And I put together human-produced objects and natural elements, and they transmute in some sort of new species. And these hybrid objects, or hybrid species, they link to the images of existing animals or plants or extinct species, or also some sort of new coming species, which archaeologists of the future might encounter, kind of cyborg dinosaurs or retooled algae. This work is addressing the intimate connections between organisms, the fragility of ecosystem and the uncertainty of future. I call it We Swim in One Water, and I see this as a metaphor, ocean as a metaphor of life, and we all swim in this together.
So the sculptures are also like, you have taken them from creatures from today or like animals of today, but also like new features that you have made up yourself.
Well, it's like they're not literally replicating any creature, so it's it's like imagined creatures, but of course they also kind of resemble some of the existing species. But of course they're not directly pointed at any particular animal or plant.
And for the collection, you were commissioned to make a revision of this installation. And how was that process for you?
In the installation created for the show, we had 64 pieces, and for the collection we selected 32 pieces. And I see these sculptures as creatures and inhabitants of the ocean. And this installation can take various scales and shapes. So if we think about ocean, and like we can look at the large section of it, and then it's a lot of species swimming in it. And I can imagine this installation in several rooms in the museum where like you can float in between those species. Or we can take a smaller section of the ocean and it's fewer species and smaller installation. But it's like it's the same concept of making those sculptures. It's just like different volumes, so to say.
And during this process of the revision of the installation, how did you make the selection? What objects were chosen for the new installation, for the collection?
Yeah. So, taking into consideration the limitations, we made a selection that worked together, evoking the image that I wanted to create. I chose various sizes and materials and combinations of materials so that this installation becomes a sample of the ocean with various species being present in it.
So it's not a new installation, it's more like another version of the installation, you would call it, maybe?
Yes, rather another arrangement.
Yeah, another arrangement.
Yeah.
How do you feel that this revisioned installation correlates to the original installation?
We tried to keep as close as possible to the materials in the original installation because I thought it was really important to preserve this spontaneity and playfulness of the work. But we had to reconsider some materials. For example, there is a blue liquid in one of the objects in the installation, and this object is going to be recreated for every occasion. So our concern was that probably in future it won't be possible to source the same color of the liquid. This liquid is a soap that I bought in a supermarket. So probably it won't be on sale anymore, or probably the work will be on display outside the country and they don't have such product. So right now at the workshop we are testing different recipes to recreate this liquid from the available materials. Yeah. We have to think very carefully of the instructions that we write for every work so that it's easy for the future users to recreate the same image.
Yeah, and it's important that the materials are the same for the core of the installation as well. Yeah, without them, the installation won't be the same.
Right.
Yes. So now we were talking about soap and like different liquids, but there's a lot of different materials in this installation, and lichen is one of them, for example. And what are your thoughts around a material like this? What is the preservation of a material like lichen?
Yes. Well, I expect it to dry out in a while, and when it changes the appearance, I would like it to be replaced with the same material. So for this, we are writing the instructions, and also we are taking pictures from all the angles so that when new material is added, it looks in the same way as it does now. So we also write down the exact name of the species and the color and so on. But also there is a question, like what happens in not 100 years, even less, because there is this anxiety of like what awaits us in future, like what is going to happen with this mass extinction and climate change. What if in 10 years lichen disappears? How do we proceed with this? How do we replace it so it becomes non-replaceable? And this is something that links to the core of the work itself, because this is the work about this uncertainty of the future, what the species are going to be in the future. I think I don't really have an answer to this question, what to do with the work. Maybe like in times like this it won't be important at all. But I'm also thinking maybe it can be replaced with a synthetic material that replicates the appearance of lichen, and then it becomes some sort of a monument to the extinct species.
Yeah. You've been working with a conservator for this past few days, and has there been any other materials that's been extra tricky for you when it comes to preservation?
Yeah, many of them were tricky actually, but I think the trickiest one was probably an object where I combined a stone and chewing gum. And I was highly recommended to consider replacing this material because chewing gum is not going to hold long. It's going to get brittle, it's going to probably change color and fall off the stone. So I was suggested to consider casting it in other materials that would be more stable and more permanent. But I think for this work and for this installation, it is quite important to preserve this spontaneity and playfulness and use materials that are really accessible and everyone can take it. It's something very familiar, and those familiar objects become something else. So everyone knows chewing gum. So I know the risks, and I can imagine that in future they will have to redo the piece, and we will write clear instructions. And it's going to be a lot of work for the people, so they're going to chew a lot of gum and stick it onto the stone. But also I thought it's quite a fun thing to do, probably. So it becomes something performative in a way. And I'm also thinking that this work, this whole installation is somehow about this impermanence of the things, how everything is in this constant transition. And in this piece, this combination of a stone and chewing gum, I think it's really beautiful in a way that stone has really slow transition, which we cannot see. It's more, we perceive it as something eternal, while chewing gum is something really temporary. Yeah. And if we replace this, then we really lose this tension, which I think is really important, this tension between materials in the installation.
What does it mean for you that your artwork is a part of Konstmuseet i Norr's collection?
I'm happy that it is now in the collection. I think it's a very important and interesting work, and I'm glad that the museum will take care of its preservation, even though it's a hard work. And I'm very curious about the future life of this work and of how it will be perceived by future generations, because the world as we know it will change, and the future is very unpredictable. And I can imagine that the visitors probably would feel as true archaeologists discovering the objects that they don't know what it is exactly, or maybe even plants. So there is, it's again about the core of the work, all this uncertainty of the future.